Now, hello, welcome along to this week's edition of the Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. As you can see, we've got our most popular person on the panel in studio, and we've also got Joe Garry as well. See the way Joe thought that was himself. It's a football weekend just gone, obviously, and finally, Joe, I think with my Kilmurry hat both on and off, the final everybody was looking for, the final everybody was dreaming for, obviously not Dunbig and Cratloe, but from a Miltown and Kilmurry perspective, this final, there's just so many side stories, particularly over the last 5 years. 2 championships each, the best of 5 now to end the decade. Marriages aplenty, side stories aplenty. This is something that's really going to get Clare football folk really worked up, isn't it?
Without question, it's a final for the ages, because, and in fairness, being a football fan of, in the County Clare, if you were to ask for a county final that will bring people, there are people that will go to the county final this year that wouldn't go if their own crowd were in it, because that's the draw that Kilmurry and Miltown will bring. And I'm sure both sides would say, geez, we'd love to beat them, but they're probably at the back of their mind say, I'd prefer if it wasn't them at the same time, because there'll be a nervous tension there'll be fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers now that won't sleep on this one, with anticipation, with excitement, and with a little bit of dread as well, because there's a huge rivalry there. We mustn't forget it's simply a game of football at the end of the day, but in Kilmurry and in Miltown, this is, any young lad growing up in those two clubs, if you asked him how could he win a championship, he'd say in front of 8 or 10,000 people in a county final, kicking the last point against them. And that's how, that's what it will mean to both clubs, and as you said, there's so much interchange between them. It permeates every single level of society.
Yeah, stay tuned for details of a very special preview podcast we've got coming up in the next while to preview that game. More details and on as we go forward on that one. But it's amazing, Peter, because there's people both around Kilmurry and in Miltown as well that are now talking about Brexit and talking about hard borders around the Cross of Savannah that have never mentioned Brexit before in their lives ever. I mean, this is just fantastic stuff to look forward to.
Brexit is definitely a good analogy, I think, to be using. It's just fascinating, everything about it. And I suppose particularly fascinating if you're from the Kilmurry parish or Miltown. But I think anyone who's any interest in Clare football will know that this has the makings of not just a great final and a very interesting final, but the build up to it. There's a lot of colour on both sides of the border. But I suppose the most important thing is there's a lot of outstanding footballers and in both panels as well. And I mean, I think what Joe was saying there about fear of losing, that's the first thing that kind of struck me about. It's going to be really interesting. I think whichever management and group of players handles the build up better will probably win it. And I don't mean just there's tactical side of it and all that will be important, but the team that can play with a bit more freedom. I don't think either of them are going to be able to play with complete freedom because of who they're playing. You just, no matter how good a psychologist you might be very hard to get that out of the head. But the team that plays most like itself at their best in this kind of occasion against Miltown or against Kilmurry, whichever side they're from, will probably win it. I think it's going to be this could be won away from the field, because I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Joe, isn't there?
Well, there's going to be pressure, but it's still going to boil down with who does what with the size 5. Both sides we know will have enough football Sunday week to win the championship. And it'll be boiled down to what they'll do with that football. And you've 2, vastly experienced managers. Obviously, Dobb, will have Miltown in good order. He'll know the Kilmurry lads inside out. And then you're dealing with probably the most experienced manager in the county in Aidan Horse Maloney. And, he's a habit of getting the best out of Kilmurry. And, he's got the best out of a lot of teams. But particularly Kilmurry, he'll be, there'll be ice in their veins, when it comes to this. Hearts will be flaming and they'll obviously want to win the game. But ultimately, they will stress, we're going to get the ball, we have to make the most of it. Forget about the side shows, forget about discipline will come into it. It'll be a big factor because you can imagine with the baying crowds that'll be there, and it'll mean so much to everybody. There's no question or doubt that'll be a factor. But ultimately, both sides, when they settle down, as Peter said, there's some of the best footballers we've had in Clare in the last 20 years to be on the field. And I can't wait for it. It's going to be a classic.
I've been waiting and looking forward to Joe Garry coming into studio, Peter, because remember we sat here a couple of weeks ago, Joe, in the aftermath of the ladies football finals, and I got somewhat castigated for getting my predictions wrong. In the lead up to this game, for all of you out there that bought the Clare Champion, you would have seen that on Saturday evening we predicted that Miltown would take Dunbig. And on Sunday afternoon, whether the accusation of bias was there or not, it was predicted that Kilmurry would just find that little bit extra, as they have done in the last couple of meetings, to take Cratloe. And I have to say, it was questioned during the week and it was talked about during the week, and my fellow expert across from me here called it the other way around. So tell me, Joe.
I don't know who the expert is.
So just tell me this now. So we both went Saturday evening, you in Miltown.
I did indeed, yes, I went with Miltown.
Tell us who you predicted on Sunday afternoon.
You might recall that I predicted the game would finish level. Which I did predict that, and I got that wrong, and then I said that Cratloe might edge it in the extra time because going on form I thought they were outstanding. But I do say in my defence that I saw Cratloe in his time, and Cratloe were superb against
I didn't get as long at this defence as this.
I want to point out that I went for Kilmurry last year in the semi-final. I was sure they were going to take in this time, and then I got that. So every time I go with Kilmurry, I don't get it right. Now I have to say as well that Slasher has already threatened my person and my property if I go with Kilmurry. So that has to be factored in. But that said, I think Kilmurry brought, in all seriousness, I think they'll bring more out of the semi-final than Miltown will. I think Miltown bring more pace to the game, potential pace to county final in Cusack Park, but then you balance that with the experience that Kilmurry have. Kilmurry have enough championship medals on the field and off the field that it'll fill a milk tank. So that's the type of everything. When you go down through the teams and you start saying equal there and not to Kilmurry there and not to Miltown there, you end up ultimately with little or nothing between the sides. And I think that more than anything points to, when that final whistle goes Sunday week, will point to even Stephen, and we'll be doing it all over again.
You're minding your personal property there with that one, Joe. Form, Peter, from the semi-finals, I guess, is all we can talk about in terms of the final. And I suppose one worry from Miltown, even going back to the quarterfinals, will be that they had a kind of a 20-minute flat spell against Lisicasey, where if Lisicasey had a free taker that was on song, they would have pushed Miltown a lot closer. Had that 20-minute flat spell against Dunbeg as well, where they brought it back to 4 points, I think, at one stage before Cormac Murray's goal. So I mean, they'll know and Dobb will know that a 20-minute flat spell against Kilmurry could ultimately be fatal.
That's it. They know that they can't afford that, but what a good position to be in. I think you're much better off being in that kind of a position going into the final, still not being quite 100% happy with how you've played. I mean, how many times have we seen a team play outstandingly in the semi-final, maybe get through, and then maybe not analyse maybe things that didn't go quite so well, but are kind of masked over because they won by 6 or 7 points. Whereas I think Miltown, Kilmurry have massive experience, but Miltown have a lot of experience as well. Even if you look at the two Clearys, they're in their mid-20s at this stage, if that. So they're not veterans, but they've played so many big matches, both hurling and football, with a huge amount at stake. The likes of them, they'll know like that. There are things that they've got to work on. They've got to make sure, they've got to try and use that pace that Joe mentioned there to stretch Kilmurry as much as they can, and they have to go for longer, and then they did against this case in the quarter final, against Dunbeg in the semi final.
I do think though the form goes out the window when it comes to a derby game like this. You can be kicking up great scores, you can be flying. When it comes down to the brass tacks of it, Kilmurry and Miltown will know each other inside out. We know what the role Brian Curtin will play. We'll know the role that Marty will play. They're two superb footballers doing that role, and it means then that scores are going to be that bit harder because there's an extra defender in front of everybody. And and at both sides you've gifted footballers. Gordon Kelly is playing as good a football as ever he played. Shawnee Malone at full back. Darren Hickey and Mark Lean have a habit of closing doors before lads even see that they're open. They're taking close off that gap to Patter's goal. And I hope that if the game is to be decided, by a point, which it looks in all probability there'll be nothing between the sides, that we hope it'll be a piece of magic from Keelan, or a little bit of class from Owen Cleary, an outstanding fetch in the middle of the field, or a defensive run, or something creative, and that it won't be a controversial call or an injury or sending off or something like that, because everybody in Clare is looking forward to this, and it has the potential to put Clare club football on the map.
Yeah. Do you think, Peter, one of the management teams will try something left field? I mean, Keith King at the edge of the square or something like that. I mean, do you try and completely throw them off, or can you get too wrapped up in that and then forget about your own natural game that you've been so good at all year?
Yeah, I think that both managements will, probably try to come up with something new that their opponent isn't going to expect. But at the same time, I think they're going to work in tandem with their players, and that they're not going to come up with something extraordinary altogether. You know, I think that both will back the team and the panel that they've got. I think that's largely what will happen. Very possibly it could come down to impact from the bench as well. You know, who has a stronger bench.
Yeah, we saw that the last day. You know, I thought Niall Hickey played very well when he came in, used his head well. You know, Breckan came in, kicked a fabulous point straight after that, and we know that the Miltown bench has been well tested at this stage. They have some great experience out there, some good young lads as well. So, you know, again, you know, you go right down through it. There's little or nothing between the sides. So, I just think that it's going to be an intriguing tactical battle. It mightn't be the highest scoring county final we've ever had, even though there's plenty of scoring talent on view. But it could very well be simple things like Patos frees from distance. You know, we know he could end up as the county final top scorer. You know, it's very possible. They'll be very disciplined at the back, both sides. And, you know, I think everyone in the county is looking forward to it. I think there'll be a huge crowd of people there, and hopefully the weather will be good and we'll be treated to a spectacle.
And one thing a lot of people were talking about, Joe, after the Kilmurry game particularly, was the performance of a young man wearing number 27, his senior debut in the championship with young Daniel Walsh. I thought he was probably up there in terms of man of the match. I mean, a lot of people talk about that experience with Kilmurry, but maybe not enough credit's given to the younger fellas. I mean, we take Dermot Coughlin as being experienced at this stage, but I mean, he's still only a young fella. The likes of Daniel Walsh, they've got young Jeremy King on the bench, fellas like that to come in, so they're kind of adding a little bit of pace to the more experienced heads, which they maybe haven't had in the last maybe 2-3 years.
That's true. Well, you know, Daniel Walsh was superb. You know, from start, maybe failed towards this game went on, but he was simply superb for 40-45 minutes of the game. And you know, Horst can do that with young players. He'll give them, you know, enough encouragement and coaching to bring them on so that they fit seamlessly into, you know, into a game like that. We've seen younger lads coming in, you know, on the Miltown side as well, has to be said. Cormac Murray in semi-final was on fire.
Yeah.
And like, we know he's there with a couple of years, etc. But, you know, they're the type of players, and when they do the matchups, and you know, the experience that's there, and when the game is in the balance in the last couple of minutes, do you go for the youth and the legs of Miltown perhaps, notwithstanding there's huge experience there, or do you go for the bucketfuls of experience that have seen so many tight games over Kilmurry? And you know, in every facet of it, for every compelling reason you can make that Kilmurry will take this crown off Miltown, invariably at the start of every year you go with whoever will beat the county champions. That's what is proven to be this year again. Miltown have the county title, they will not give it up, and of all the teams they would hate to give it up to, it'll be their near neighbours. So I think it's going to be a classic.
And I'd be very interested as well on how both managements are going to handle the build up at home. You know, how many of the Miltown players live in Miltown, how many of the Kilmurry players live in Kilmurry? Are they better off trying to avoid the hype locally as much as possible, just come to training and then head away home? Is it possible to do that, or does that take the enjoyment from it as well? You have to enjoy these,
and like, you know,
occasions too.
This is Miltown's third county final in 5 years, like, you know, and Kilmurry, as we said, are there every second year, if not every year, you know. So I mean, it's nothing new to any of them. There'll be none of them getting carried away.
None of what has gone before will come anywhere near touching this.
No, but granted, I'm quite sure that all the experienced lads in both Miltown and Kilmurry will say, lads, it's still about a size 5 on the park, and do what you're naturally good at. And you know, as I say, you've two fellas on the sideline in the managers of both sides who'll be very calm and collective in that. They won't be racing around the place abusing people. They'll be focused on their own sides, getting the best out of their own teams. And you know, as I say, hopefully it'll be decided, if it is to be decided Sunday week, decided by something special, because it deserves that. And all of us in Clare football, with a passion for Clare football, owe both clubs a deal of gratitude that we are going to have this. I know in Dunbeg and Crackle will be very disappointed, but back west in particular, you know, everyone you meet is talking about this county final.
Yeah, I have been since Sunday at about whatever it was, half 3 or thereabouts.
And I think when you look at the management as well, I mean, Kilmurry had a poor year last year. There's no escaping that. And you know, I think maybe people outside of Kilmurry might have thought, is there another kick in this group of players? And then, you know, you look at David O'Brien then coming in. I think it's a tough situation to come into managing a team that are reigning county champions. You know, that, because where can you go from there? Only down. I mean, if you can retain the title, great. But you know, they've won the Keysy Cup. They've got to the county final.
They have been the most consistent team. You know, at the start of the year, you would say, you always look at the county champions and say whoever will take them down will probably win it, because you don't become county title champions without being the best team in the county, and you're still the best team in the county unless someone takes it off you.
And I mean, if Miltown do the 2 in a row, like it'll be 2 in a row for Miltown would be you know, a great achievement anyway for this group of players. given, and we've spoken about it a good bit before, where they've come from. I mean, a lot of these players were relegated down to intermediate, and it looked as if football in Miltown was, well, it was in crisis. That was 2012 when they were relegated.
That's around
2011.
12, I think, yeah.
But what they've done since, like player-wise, club-wise, is an example probably to anyone. But if they do the 2 in a row, have beaten Kilmurry, equally Kilmurry stop them. I mean, it's just, I can't wait.
We'll park all that discussion for now, because as you mentioned, we have details of a very special preview podcast to come. It's a live one, and you'll want to be there. That's all we'll say on that, and we'll give you details as soon as they're confirmed. We mentioned intermediate, and I'm loads to talk about it, Joe. There's a big intake of breath there. You saw it just happen, but intermediate final completed again. Maybe going along expected lines. I know Peter and the rest of the Gales contingent won't agree with that, obviously, but it means St Breckan's, Kildysart, 2 very, very strong teams into the final. They're on merit, and again, a very, very hard one to call, and a good move, I think, that this game, well, I'd prefer to see it on before, but the Senior B final, Kilmurry and Ibrickane is the curtain raiser to the Senior final, but I'd love to see the intermediate game on before. But it's still in Cusack Park, it's on the Saturday, so that'll draw its own crowd as well, and again, kind of splitting hairs here trying to pick a winner, isn't it?
The 2 favourites came through. We probably expected that, but from the word go, St Breckan's and Kildysart were talked about being as potential finalists if they avoided each other, and it has come to pass. Both of them won their games. Probably the scorelines mightn't do justice to the struggles they had to win the games, but neither will mind. They're in the county final and an opportunity to go back up senior, and gifted footballers. And what's interesting is that we know probably a little more about Brackens, given that we've seen them in senior championship for the last number of years, but Kildysart were most unlucky last year, and they have some excellent young players, particularly up front. So this one, the wide open space at Cusack Park, we mightn't expect a high scoring game in the county senior football final, but I do expect one in this one.
Yeah, you saw Emmett McMahon up close, obviously, Peter, from the line. I thought he was outstanding. I thought Dermot O'Donnell was really, really good, and if this Clare hurling debacle isn't sorted out soon and lads start getting sick of hanging around the verges of the panel, I for one, when we spoke about Conor McGrath already, we'd love to see Conor on the football panel, but the performance of Mikey O'Malley got a lot of people talking. Colin Collins was in the stand in Clare watching that particular game. Like, I thought the quality of his kick passing, the vision, the crossfield, the movement, all very, very good stuff in an overall picture for Clare football.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm looking forward to this intermediate final nearly as much as the senior final, because the reasons you mentioned there's some exceptionally good young footballers on both teams, and I think what I kind of really like about both of them is that the best footballers are probably forwards on both sides as well. They're attacking players, they're creative players. Kildysart have the players you mentioned there, like Emma McMahon is a class footballer. If you let him play, he'll do you serious damage. Same with Dermot O'Donnell, Seamus Casey. Breckans then have like Dale Masterson. Now he's in his mid to late 20s at this stage, well, mid 20s I suppose at this stage, but he's playing very, very well. We all know about John McGann. Players like Rowan Danaher, Jack Sheedy is a very, very good attacking wing back. What they all have in common is they're very comfortable with the ball, and they use the ball cleverly. They use it quickly. I'd be very, very confident that this will be a really good final. But also that a lot of these players, I think, can take it up another step. Not just at club level. I think a lot of these players have the capability of playing inter-county football for Clare if they want to, and I hope they do. Yeah,
we just finish up because time is catching up with us, but obviously this morning, Joe, on Tuesday morning we had the draw for the Munster Football Championship. Lo and behold, the Oracle didn't come true again. It wasn't Clare and Kerry and Limerick that triumvirate there for the last 15-16 years. What an opportunity this has now opened up for, I guess, all 4 counties on the other side of the draw. For those who don't know, Cork and Kerry in a semi-final, it's Clare and Tip in a quarter. We've got Limerick and Waterford on the other side, and pens out from there. Written in the stars for Clare to meet Joe Hayes, was it?
It could very well be, and I'm sure Tipperary will be licking their lips as well, as will Waterford and Limerick, because even though Cork came back to the pack, and we would certainly argue in Clare that Clare were ahead of Cork, but the fact that Cork and Kerry is seen as the big two in Munster on one side, it does open up that opportunity, but it's only an opportunity if you take it. and hopefully the Clare boys, we're going to be down a couple of players with the championships. Will hopefully throw up a couple of more players, and Cullum certainly has the rubber worn out of the tyres going around the place looking at matches, so hopefully we'll have a few more players. But certainly when it comes to championship, the key thing for Clare now is to get a good league run, and the fact that we hopefully will have 4 home games should set us up nicely then for a crack at Tip and Rome 1.
Yeah, what do you think, Peter? Is it an opportunity knocking, or is it too early to think about it?
It's no harm in thinking about it, I suppose. Colin Collins will be thinking ahead, looking at are there 4 or 5 players there that he can bring in. There's been a few times over the years that I think there was one particular season, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I think 10 players from the year before, for different reasons, weren't available the following year, and I was thinking there's no way they're going to stay in Division 2. But other players are brought in that showed that they could cut it at intercounty level, that they had the aptitude, that they really went at it. So I think that I suppose our dependence on kind of individual players, I think we've all been educated a bit in that over the last few years. In that, I think, well, I speak for myself, and I've realised that if players come in and really go at it, work hard, somehow manage to produce the ability they've shown at club level on the intercounty scene, I'd be confident that Clare have first of all a good chance of doing well in the league, and then looking towards championship, you'd have to say Tipperary at home. You would think Clare will want to be winning that game.
Yeah, loads of details to be confirmed in the coming weeks, of course, and that's where we have to leave you for this week's podcast. But it's not the only podcast we have for you this week. Thursday evening we'll be sitting down with another panel of experts to look ahead to the county hurling final as well, and in the paper this week a plethora of reviews and previews. There's too many to go into, but obviously the intermediate and senior hurling finals take precedence. Loads of reaction from the weekend and lots more besides. Do pick it up, as we mentioned, that podcast on Thursday night. We're back again reviewing the county hurling senior and intermediate finals. We'll talk to you then.